For years, the United States has been a dominant player in supplying liquefied natural gas, LNG, to Europe, stepping up when the EU sought to cut its reliance on Russian energy. But now, a new competitor is emerging, Canada, with Europe looking north for a more stable and potentially cheaper alternative. U.S. gas exporters face a serious challenge. Is this a one-time shift, or does it signal a long-term decline in America's energy influence? And with the rise of electric vehicles reshaping global demand, could the U.S. be on the verge of an energy market shakeup? The leaders of the European Council and the European Commission are doubling down on their efforts to strengthen ties with Canada, pushing to finalize a free trade agreement with Ottawa. As tensions rise over tariffs and trade disputes, the European Union is looking for a new partner, one that, like them, has found itself in Washington's crosshairs. What was once a hopeful vision of North American economic unity has unraveled into a chaotic and unpredictable reality, driven by high-stakes trade wars. At the center of this turmoil are the steep tariffs imposed by the United States on imports from Canada and Mexico. President Donald Trump's decision to slap a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports from Canada and other nations has created a ripple effect, shaking up global markets. While Washington scrambles to secure alternative trade deals, the real crisis is unfolding in the economies hit hardest by these tariffs. And at the top of that list is Canada. For Canada, this isn't just an economic headache, it's a major threat. U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods have remained a hot-button issue on the world stage, with the stakes getting higher by the day. The clock is ticking. Trump initially suspended tariffs on Canada and Mexico for a month, but that grace period is almost up. With the March 12th deadline fast approaching, tensions are at a boiling point. The Canadian government is racing against time, searching for a way to shield its economy before U.S. tariffs come crashing back down. So far, Canada has played it carefully, responding with counter-tariffs and targeted trade restrictions. In a strategic move, it has zeroed in on exporters in Republican strongholds, hoping that economic pain in key voting regions might pressure Trump into reconsidering. But for many in Canada, these efforts haven't gone far enough. The country's leadership is under pressure to hit back harder. That's when Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau unveiled a bold, game-changing strategy, one that could shake up the global energy market. His plan? A dramatic pivot toward Europe, using one powerful tool: liquefied natural gas, LNG. By bringing these two forces together, European trade and Canadian energy, Trudeau is signaling a major shift that could redefine international economic alliances and challenge U.S. dominance in the energy sector. Now, let's dive into how Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is preparing to counter U.S. tariffs before they take effect. We'll also explore how this growing trade conflict between the United States and Canada directly impacts the European Union, and where European nations stand in the middle of this high-stakes economic showdown. But before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and hit that like button. It's a simple and free way to stay updated on all our latest content. Now, back to the topic at hand. With European countries scrambling to reduce their reliance on Russian energy, Canada is exploring a major business opportunity: exporting liquefied natural gas, LNG, to Europe. Prime Minister Trudeau has signaled that his government is considering a strategy to make Canada a key energy supplier to the EU, turning economic pressure from the U.S. into a potential advantage. The looming threat of tariffs and ongoing economic uncertainty have pushed the Quebec government to reconsider a controversial pipeline project. This project would transport natural gas from Western Canada to Quebec, where it would be liquefied and shipped overseas. Initially, the plan was scrapped, but now, as geopolitical tensions rise, it is being revived as both a direct response to Trump's tariffs and a strategic move against Russia's grip on European energy markets. The prospect of Canadian LNG shipments to Europe has sparked significant interest across the EU. The project, known as LNG Quebec, was previously cancelled in 2021 over environmental concerns. However, with Quebec's economic future uncertain due to its trade ties with the U.S., the province's Environment Minister, Benoit Charette, has announced that the government is willing to take a fresh look at the proposal. That being said, the project still faces hurdles. Minister Charette has made it clear that any revival must address the concerns previously raised by Quebec's Public Consultation Bureau, BP, which played a major role in its rejection. The government of Premier François Legault had initially backed LNG Quebec, hoping it would diversify the economy of the Saguenay region, an area north of Quebec City heavily reliant on the aluminum and forestry industries. The original plan was abandoned after officials determined that its environmental risks outweighed its economic benefits and that public opposition to the pipeline was too strong. Now, however, the stakes have changed. The resurrected project proposes a massive 780-kilometer natural gas pipeline running from northern Ontario to Saguenay, along with a new facility to liquefy the gas and prepare it for export. If it moves forward, this project could not only reshape Canada's role in global energy markets, but also challenge the United States' position as Europe's primary LNG supplier. BAPE determined that increased tanker traffic along the Saguenay River would threaten vulnerable beluga whale populations and significantly raise greenhouse gas emissions. Despite these environmental concerns, Quebec Premier François Legault argued that the province must diversify its exports in response to U.S. tariffs. Legault made it clear Quebec is ready to rethink its role in global energy markets. Foreign Minister Mélanie Joly echoed this sentiment, emphasizing that LNG Quebec could be Canada's gateway to new markets, particularly in Europe. She highlighted a critical issue. Canada is overwhelmingly dependent on a single customer. A staggering 98% of Alberta's oil exports currently go to the United States, with no existing pipeline connecting Western Canada to Quebec. This reliance on one trading partner leaves Canada vulnerable, making diversification a national priority. With such high financial stakes, the approval of LNG Quebec signals a major shift, one that could have profound consequences for both Canada and its biggest energy customer, the United States. So, what does this mean for the U.S.? If Canada redirects its natural gas to the European Union, could America find itself in an energy bind? Currently, Canadian natural gas plays a vital role in stabilizing U.S. domestic supplies and supporting American LNG exports to allies in Europe and Asia. The numbers speak for themselves. Canada accounts for nearly 98% of U.S. natural gas imports. In 2022 alone, about 99% of all U.S. natural gas imports came from Canada, almost entirely via pipeline. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, EIA, natural gas demand in the United States is set to outpace supply growth over the next 2 years. Adding to this pressure, rising energy consumption from data centers and reshoring of industrial production could further strain the U.S. power grid. With Canadian gas already making up 9% of total U.S. consumption and the potential to increase that share, it has been a key piece of America's energy security puzzle. But Canada's pivot toward Europe could change everything. If LNG Quebec moves forward, U.S. access to Canadian natural gas may come under increased scrutiny, especially as Trump's March 12th tariff reinstatement looms. The timing couldn't be worse for Washington, with 6 West Coast LNG projects either under construction or proposed, including the first phase of LNG Canada, which is expected to come online this year. Canada's total LNG export capacity is set to rise significantly. As Canada looks beyond its southern neighbor for new energy markets, the United States may be facing a new reality, a future where Canadian gas is no longer guaranteed. With a proposed LNG export capacity of 26 billion cubic feet per day, Canada is on track to become one of the world's top 5 LNG exporters. If a significant portion of this supply is diverted to Europe and Asia, the United States could face serious natural gas shortages. The location of Canada's West Coast LNG terminals gives them a major advantage. Shipments to Asia take just 10 days, compared to 20 days for U.S. Gulf Coast exporters navigating the Panama Canal. This efficiency makes Canadian LNG an attractive option for Asian markets, creating another layer of competition for U.S. energy exports. But natural gas isn't Canada's only leverage. The country is also a major oil powerhouse, and its vast crude reserves could become a critical bargaining chip. The close integration of the two nations' energy industries means any disruption in this flow could create serious economic and logistical challenges for U.S. refineries. Many American refineries, particularly in the Midwest, are specifically designed to process heavy Canadian crude. If they lose access to this supply, they will either face higher refining costs or be forced to rely on alternative sources like Venezuela or the Middle East, exposing them to geopolitical instability. This gives Canada significant influence in energy negotiations, one that could shift the balance of power in future trade talks. Meanwhile, the Trans Mountain Pipeline Expansion, TMX, has further strengthened Canada's position on the global oil stage. This expansion has nearly tripled Canada's capacity to transport oil to coastal markets, opening new opportunities to support allies like South Korea and Japan. In fact, last September, the first shipments from the expanded TMX pipeline made their way to China, Japan, and South Korea, signaling a major shift in Canada's oil export strategy. With TMX now capable of moving 890,000 barrels of oil per day from Alberta to Canada's Pacific coast, Asian refiners have gained a valuable new source of heavy crude. This shift demonstrates a growing interest from Asian buyers looking for cost-effective, stable oil supplies, especially since U.S. sanctions limit their ability to purchase Venezuelan crude. The fact that Canada is now expanding its energy exports to global markets, rather than relying solely on the U.S., highlights how Trump's tariffs could reshape trade dynamics. If the U.S. continues down this path, it risks losing a once reliable energy partner to competitors in Europe and Asia. However, it's important to recognize that this escalating trade conflict isn't just affecting Canada. It's hurting all three major North American economies.